Welcome to the Women in Business radio show with Sian Murphy, connecting women in business around the globe.
Hello and welcome into the Women in Business radio show studio. I'm Sian Murphy. My co-host today is Jemma Fairclough Haynes. Say hello.
Hello.
So Jemma is the founder of Orchard Employment Law. We're going to be catching up with Jemma later, but our very special guest in the studio today is Ashlee Cooper, who is the director of Raffingers Marketing, and she's also a partner at Raffingers Chartered Certified Accountants. Sounds like a very, very busy lady. So Jemma, actually, what I'd like you to do, if you could just read out Ashlee's personal bio. What I want to do is just give listeners an idea of the sort of thing that she does before we go into our announcements and our quick fire round.
Most certainly. So, Ashlee's got over 10 years experience in marketing, fast-growing startups and industry-leading global brands, managing multi-million-pound budgets and multi-channel campaigns. There isn't much Ashlee hasn't seen or done in the world of marketing. She is obsessed with brand and more obsessed with results. She's powered by driving positive change, boosting business success, and truly making an impact. They're a team of customer-centric strategic thinkers and creatives who are obsessed with getting under the skin of a brand in order to understand how best they can connect with their ideal customer to drive up revenue. You can tell I haven't done this in a little while.
I'm just
been a little while.
I'm just going to read out a few other bits and pieces while Jemma sorts her teeth out. It won't be long.
You can tell I haven't done that in a little while.
Ashlee is an expert in marketing strategy, personal branding, and well, just about really everything we need. We're going to be picking her brains totally done. There's going to be nothing left. She's going to be leaving as a husk. A marketing branding husk. So welcome into the studio, Ashlee. Thank you so much for being here. Shall we do, we've got some announcements. I think we'll then go over to our quick fire round. So
sure. I'm
going to do just a little bit of an announcement here to say we have, of course, the Women in Business Big Show 2023, which is on the 10th of August at Longfield Academy, which is about 15 minutes from. I was just about to say Pancreas Station.
The pancreas next to the liver. No,
it's a Pancreas Station. It's not. It's if you're in Kent, or if you're just sort of on the outskirts on London, it is not too far away from Blue Water. We've got loads and loads of parking. So you can get there by train or you can drive, and we've got 15 speakers, we've got networking, we've got all sorts of things going on, and it's free entry. Free entry if you're visiting for the day, and you can go to all of the talks and you can visit all of the exhibitors and have a really, really good time networking, meeting new people to collaborate with and help grow your business. I forgot to breathe. Okay. Right, I think we are going to go into our quick fire round. This is where we put all of us on the spot and just sort of think back over the last week or so of what we've been doing, what's worked and what hasn't worked. And wonder, the thing that hasn't worked for me is I still haven't managed to get my sheet printed out big enough so that I can actually read it. But never mind. Shall we start with what we're reading? And I think we can have a little go with you as well, Jemma. What are you reading at the moment? Or listening to?
I'm a big fan of Audible, because who has time to turn pages? So I am listening to The Light We Carry by Michelle Obama. I have to say, it's not as good as her first book, in my humble opinion, but I'm sticking with it.
The Light We Carry.
Yeah.
Okay. Ashlee, what are you reading at the moment?
I mean, as it stands, I have a 1-year-old and I'm trying to manage my business.
So reading nothing at all.
Really struggling to read or find time for absolutely anything other than
just trying to go to
living
sleep.
life and breathing. But I am, I just, through my maternity leave, got very into the Handmaid's Tale book series, which was an amazing distraction from life, but also weirdly relevant for everything that was going on with the pandemic and everything. So loved it, excellent, and took my brain away from work and everything else that was going on.
What am I reading at the moment? I'm actually sort of going back to books.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Audible as well. I love Audible, but I'm sort of just started, literally just started, opened the first page of the Personal MBA. I thought that was time to just sort of have a revisit of that. Every now and then I like to dip back into books I've read before. and just sort
you're one
of.
those. I can't do that.
I do that.
Do you?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can't rewatch or reread things.
Oh, I do it all the time. I do it all the time. Sometimes it's like a little bit of conditioning. You can sort of anchor yourself to a particular state of excitement or happiness or hope or whatever. It doesn't really matter. And I find that audio books, video, and other books are a really good way of doing that. The other one I dip back into is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. That sort of thing. I'll just dip back into that every now and then to remember that actually it's not all about me. I only think it is.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next one. What have you learnt this week, Gemma?
So this week I have learnt that you can't control everything, actually. that's what I mean.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I mean, I try very hard, but you can't control everything. So, I had to, because I do employment law, so I was representing a client, or supposed to be representing a client this week, and the other side didn't turn up, and I decided, well, we just have to make the most of the day. So that was my biggest takeaway this week, is you just got to make the most of the day. What about yourself?
What have you learnt this week, Ashlee?
I've learnt that every single week is completely unpredictable. Last week, I had a very different week. It was quite slow with new clients, slow with getting meetings booked in. This week, on Monday, I had 3 meetings booked in, kind of one after the other, and I've landed 3 new clients. So I would say that it's really easy to get bogged down in the worst weeks and think that it's not going to pick back up. But there was nothing we did differently as a team, It just sorted itself out, and this week's been way more positive so far. So, yeah, that's kind of one of the best things I've done.
Stuff goes in cycles, doesn't it?
It really
It
does.
sort of goes up and down and up and down. And sometimes when you're in the down, it's hard to remember the up.
Definitely.
But it just arrives as long as you keep going, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Keep your strategy in mind, do what you're doing, and things just sort themselves out.
Yeah. What did you learn this week then, Sean?
I learnt to make sure that I actually get what I want with things happening, and this being printed out a bit bigger.
Oh, okay.
I know how ridiculous that sounds, but I haven't taken control of it. I just keep saying to people, "Can you? I need that bigger. How do I print that out bigger?" And it still hasn't happened, and I can't see a thing. So
every day's a learning day, isn't it? Every day's a school day.
Yep, there is.
as they say.
So productivity tip. It could be anything. So doesn't matter.
So my productivity tip has been to do the things that you do well and delegate the things that you don't do so well. Honestly, because you could spend ages trying to perfect things that really are just not your bag. So I'm giving all of the things, which is quite a lot, that I'm not that great at in my business to other members of the team. And it makes me more productive.
It does. It does. Sometimes I'm not very good at passing things over because I don't explain them very well. So productivity, it could be a tool or something that you use. It could be anything.
Yeah, I mean, for me, mine would be get outside where you can. In terms of productivity, if I find myself having a moment where I'm feeling like I'm about to start procrastinating and it's not going to be a good use of my time, I get up, I go for a little walk, I have a screen break, and I find that when I come back down, I'm way more focused and can refocus on what I'm doing. That's becoming more and more important at the moment than it ever has been for me. And it works really well for my team as well. And I think it makes us all a lot more productive, even though technically we're away from the screen more than we perhaps used to be. So that's working really well for us.
That kind of takes us on to our next question, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Which is, what do you do to relax? Do you relax?
Relaxing is hard at the moment. I am finding it very, very hard. Absolutely taking the dogs out for a walk with the baby in the baby carrier. That's obviously a nice way to get out of the house, although relaxing with a boxer dog is questionable. I think, generally speaking, I take any free hour that I have if my baby's napping and I've not got a particular project that I'm working on or something like that, to just have a bit of me time, whatever that may be, sitting with a cup of tea and just thinking in silence is sometimes a lovely way to do it.
Do you know, I think sometimes we've lost the ability to sit in silence and how important it is.
And it is.
Yeah, and I found myself being sort of wanted that complete distraction all the time because then you don't actually have to think about the things that you might not want to think about, but sometimes you just got to. and I think that's my productivity tip, is there are things that you might be avoiding and you just have to dive in.
Eat the frog.
Eat the frog. Yeah. And if you don't want to think about it, there's probably a very good reason it ain't going to go away. So you have to sort of grab it by the balls and get on with it. Okay, so we're on to the biggest failure. What is your biggest failure?
Mine is quite, I would say, significant, actually. I had just set up the new business. So obviously I got promoted to partner at Raffingers, which is the accountancy firm. And at the same time, we were launching Raffingers Marketing, which is our subsidiary company and marketing agency. And I was also just found out I was pregnant. So I was trying to set this new business up and get it ready so that it was kind of there for when I went on maternity leave, and then when I came back, I could just get started straight away. But I picked up a couple of clients ahead of my maternity leave, which wasn't, in hindsight, the best idea, because in my head, I could just do a bit of work for them when the baby slept. Newborns, they sleep a lot. That's what I'd heard. And of course, was not doing my best work for these people. Thought I was, but really wasn't. Communication was not good. And, you know, for your first few clients, that wasn't the right impression I wanted from a client experience perspective, from a work quality perspective. So, yeah, it just, my biggest failure, obviously I lost both clients. Have great relationships with them, and they were completely understanding of the situation and timing.
They just didn't want to pay for it.
But yeah, absolutely would not be taking on brand new clients for a brand new business whilst you're about to take maternity leave. Would be a great tip for anybody.
Looking back on it, is there a way that you perhaps could have done both or made that work?
I tried. So I obviously have a great team behind me and delegated as much as I physically could. But ultimately, the business processes and systems were not set up properly yet.
Right.
We thought they were, but there's a lot you learn in your first year of business. And even, you know, things like invoicing and all of that stuff just wasn't there. So I think in hindsight, if we'd have focused more in that kind of pre-maternity leave phase of the systems, the processes, the onboarding process, our communication style with clients, all of that kind of stuff, it would have, definitely helped. It would have been an absolute game changer. But, it's easy to look back and know what you would do, right? But at the time, I thought, you know, because the website looked great and from a marketing perspective, it all looked great, that the other stuff wasn't as important. Now I know the foundations can't be shaky. You can't build a house on shaky foundations. So it's like, you know, you have to get those foundations right to have a kind of successful first few years in business.
I just want to head off a little bit on this, and you may not know the answer to this, but one of the things that you just said was you thought you were doing a good job, for the client, but you weren't.
Yes.
And that happens. It just happens, doesn't it? And I think sometimes it's something that a lot of people think, you know, it's, how do I actually know that I'm doing a good job here? So looking at that particular aspect of it, do you think there's anything that you could have done? Because it's quite scary, that, isn't it? You think you're doing okay, and actually you're not. And the client knows it.
Yes.
And now you know it, but you're not quite sure. Is this client being oversensitive? Have I not explained it properly? What have I actually done a bad job? And I think it's something that as women we don't do very well. We don't evaluate internally whether we're doing a good job or not, and get a bit confused.
Definitely.
We need somebody from outside to tell us. Is there anything that you could maybe have done about that so that you could measure your performance looking back now?
Absolutely. There are things that we're doing now, like we adopt the traction methodology in the business, which helps us know our kind of key quarterly goals and our focus points, and the most important things we have to focus on for that quarter are what we call rocks that we have to hit, and all of the to-dos to hit that. It helps you with your communication style, your systems, your processes, and all of that.
So if when you're looking at, say, working with one particular client and what you're doing for that client, you now have a particular way of measuring that you've hit a standard with that client. Exactly. And so even if they come back and go, I'm not happy, you have something that you can
We can
measure
measure against.
That you can measure against.
Precisely.
Okay.
So we've got a scorecard which has essentially all of that information. We also have a guarantee in place at the business, which is essentially if you don't feel like the centre of our universe, let us know and we'll turn it around immediately. And that guarantee derived straight from the experience I had with that particular client. The work we were doing for that client was great. There was nothing wrong with the work. The issue was the communication.
Okay.
They bought into a relationship with me. I was going to be the person that they were going to be working with. And of course, I'd see missed calls on my phone. I was feeding the baby. Or, I would finally get to them, but they've finished working hours. And for me, I'd start work maybe at 8 p.m. and do a few hours then. So communication was the absolute number one issue. But what we learned from that experience is that when they came to us, they said to us, we really wanted to feel like everything you had was focused on us. And that's what all clients want from you. And whether that's realistic or not is a completely different conversation. But that is what they want. So we put this guarantee in place, which was if at any point you do not feel like that, let us know and we'll turn that around. And we measure against things that we've got a much clearer statement of works with a client now that says exactly what they should expect and when and how. We didn't have that in place. The initial proposal we sent that client wasn't strong enough looking back at it. It wasn't clear.
Yeah, I think that's quite common, isn't it? That learning to manage your client expectation, isn't it? So I know some businesses will have that charter, which is we'll get back to you within 24 hours, and they probably will get back to you in 15 minutes. But the expectation is, to under-promise and over-deliver.
Yeah, always. Great tip.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
in the website stuff of what we do, where it's a lot more, people are expecting a response. We're very careful to measure that even if, we've agreed that we'll communicate by WhatsApp, unless there's something in place, we are not picking up WhatsApp at midnight and doing something unless that agreement is in place, because people get to expect it. And then if you pick it up at 11 at night, even though your office shuts at 5, you're underperforming. Yeah. Even though you've been overperforming for 2 years, and they've been getting more than they're paying for. Suddenly, you're not doing your job. Oh well, that's crap, isn't it? You're not doing your job. And I think that's key, isn't it? It's setting it up beforehand.
Definitely.
And sticking to it.
It's hard.
And sticking to it. Yeah, it is hard, especially when you really like the client. They've almost sort of become friends. The temptation is to go, hi,
give them a lot more.
Sunday at 7 p.m. Even though my hours are Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. But they do become accustomed to that, don't they? So. Yeah.
So being very clear on the communication.
Yeah.
So now, with the project management side of it, is it sort of diffused a bit between more than one person? So you're not, if somebody does go off sick or something happens, everything doesn't grind to a halt, and your client knows that there are other people that they can communicate with.
Definitely, we've got account managers now, and also just. We've employed a team who are a lot stronger in various areas, and to be honest, I've surrounded myself with people that are far more talented than I am. So if a client wants me, I don't know why. Like, if you've got a social media query, you need to speak to my, Simone on my team. If you've got a branding query, speak to Charlie. These guys are far more talented in those areas than I am. But I'm absolutely all about kind of surrounding myself with the right people. As you said earlier, delegating. Not holding tight those relationships because it's my baby, because it is, right? Your business is your baby, and it's really easy to hold things super tight and want to have as much involvement of every relationship and every conversation as possible. But I think equally it's important to make sure that you're delegating stuff off to the right people, so that if something does happen and you can't work, there are relationships in place, your clients know who they can speak to, and it just means that there's transparency across all areas of the business, which I think is key.
One of the things I just wanted to sort of just highlight is how you're allowing other people, and you're acknowledging that other people are more talented than you.
Yes, for sure.
I think that's so important, isn't it? And I love that.
Thank you.
That's something you've actively done. So actually, no, this person knows more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's key.
Yeah.
Especially with what I do, it changes so often. There is no way that one person can stay the master of everything. That's just, it's not possible. You have to bring people in that are hyper focused on all of the changes and everything that's going on in their particular area, and you can continue to push them forward and develop them. I would say at this point, I'm definitely more of the relationship partner.
Which is it's an important part, though, isn't it? That
Yeah.
relationship,
Definitely.
It is an important part.
Well, especially when I want to say things are going wrong, but we always have challenges in business, don't we? Where the person, where somebody's off sick or somebody's doing something else, and that client needs dealing with. They need to be properly managed and feel safe and secure no matter what's going on. So, and I think that's something that we can get too caught up in the do, of the do and the deliver. And it's like, well, I've done it. It's up there. It's working.
Exactly.
It's working. And my job here is done. And actually it's not, is it?
No, and I think that's it. It's about that kind of full relationship with your clients. And I think, one particular example is we've got a client, and at the beginning I was the relationship partner. I looked after everything, did a lot of the doing, and slowly delegated that to one of my team. And their relationship is unbelievable. It's fantastic. I've got solid enough foundations that if he fell off sick or needed time out, I would absolutely be able to step in, and I know everything. We've got a great CRM system now, so we can see everything. There's complete transparency over the work and the projects. But yeah, it's an absolute game changer when you have that, because the relationships you can have with your client and their perception of your team and how solidly you work together as kind of cogs in a machine, I think are really important.
And I think what you've just highlighted there about the CRM is you're not just relying, so as a customer relationship manager, so it could be new leads coming in, but basically it's how you're maintaining the relationship with your customer, your client, is a key, isn't it? Because otherwise everything's sort of nebulous and wishy-washy, and you might have told George about this, Pip, but you might not have done. And then something happens and you disappear for 3 weeks, and that nobody has any idea of what's happening, and it's just been a load of sort of whispers, and conversations that may or may not happen. So having something solid. Was that? Did you have something CRM built in-house, or is it something you've brought in and adapted?
So with Raffingers, the accountancy practice, we adopted HubSpot CRM system, which was great, and it works really well for the work that we do with them. With our business, we didn't really start with anything. I think we thought we're just such great communicators. We all talk. We don't need this. But very quickly, we also jumped on the HubSpot bandwagon for that secondary business as well. And it is a game changer. You can see your clients or your prospective clients that have gone on your social media posts, what they've engaged with, and then they've gone to your website, and then you see that they read your newsletter, and then they've downloaded this help sheet. And it sounds stalky, of course, but it's unbelievably powerful from understanding their pain points and what they resonate with. And with that respect, it's brilliant. I think it's fantastic.
But I don't think it's stalky, because I want somebody to know what it is that I'm interested in. I don't necessarily want to fill out a survey. I don't want to go through all of that business. I sort of want you to know. Just as a little aside for people listening in, HubSpot is a fantastic tool, but it can be quite expensive to implement. If you want a CRM that's very similar to HubSpot, EngageBay is growing and has a similar sort of platform, similar sort of background. I think there may be an offshoot of developers that have come from HubSpot. I'm not sure about that. At a very, very, very different price point, and they will also help you on board. But I think HubSpot is the leader, actually, isn't it?
It's great.
Yeah.
And I think now, because of the amount of kind of connections it's got, right?
Yeah.
We've connected it to our Xero, which is the accounting software. We've got it connected to Outlook. So every email we send is logged into the system. So you don't have to say to somebody, oh, what did you say to this client, or how much did you price
You
them?
can
The
go on
quoting
and
function.
so you've got a full client
Picture.
management system.
Yep.
So anybody, if I came to work for you, I could go on and I could see a history of that client, what's happened, what's said, what's been sent to them, what they've sent back, what they're getting, what they're paying, and I can spend some time and get a full picture.
Definitely. It's very powerful, and it does provide that transparency.
It's invaluable, actually. I'll give you an experience we had. One of our clients they've had a lot of staff changes, and they've been with us for 5 years, and they came to us and said, we've got this situation going on, we don't know what to do. And I was like, well, according to our CRM, 3 years ago you had this exact same situation, and you've actually got insurance with, and we don't sell that insurance, but because we've been liaising with various different staff members, we almost know the client better than they know themselves, and they were well impressed. They were like, how did you know that? I'm like, I'm just fabulous. and I have a CRM.
That's the thing, it's not always about the big things with it.
It's not.
It's those small little touches, like having a look at that history and being like, oh, that person got in touch 4 years ago. They had a separate business then. Now they're getting in touch and they've got... It's the small little touches, I think, that make having a CRM, any CRM, so powerful, because you've got that real ability to give them those little magic client experience moments that you can't always give them.
And even those small, again, as you say, the things that might not seem that important. So one of our clients is pregnant, and someone else picks up the phone and go, congratulations. Or how do you know that? Well, because the email trail says, just to let you know. And they just feel special. They just feel like we're talking about them all the time, which of course we are.
But I want to just say that we can all do this. We don't have to have CRMs. We don't have to have electronic things that do this. You can do this by keeping a file and having dated actions in the... Well, it's so long since I've actually had a file. What's that thing called?
Like
the cover.
My dad has this thing. It's like a box with all cards of everyone he's ever met and notes.
Like a
it's
Rolodex.
their birthdays, what football team do they support. It's every single thing. And they use that, and they love it. He loves it.
So you can, if you're just starting out and you're thinking, I number one, I don't have the money to get a CRM, and even if I did, I don't know where to start. And you can get these on monthly payments, but you still have to. There's still quite a big learning curve, and you still have to pick the one that's right for you, and all of this sort of thing. Unless you're going to spend stupid amounts of money getting one custom built. So just have a file per client. And in there you put all of the correspondence. If you've got emails, sometimes I think it might be quite useful to print those emails out so that you've got a record you can have a look at. And on the inside cover, just put a date and the action. And that is, it may not be as easy for somebody, if you've got somebody 500 miles down the road working with you, to have a look at it. But at least you've got something, you've got a starting point of how you can help that client and actually keep a record of your dealings and transactions with them. And so that you can do exactly what's being suggested, that you can surprise them and go, actually, do you know you've got the insurance for that?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how cool is that?
I know, it's good.
It's a massively powerful client experience tool. It really is.
Yeah, and whatever business that you're running, however it is, I think that's actually just key. Managing that relationship and the information around that client.
Definitely.
I've forgotten where we were. Where were we, Jemma? So this is why you need a Jemma.
Is that still biggest failure?
It is our biggest failure.
So what we want to know now is, what is your superpower?
I think connecting with people and figuring out ways to connect with lots of different people is my superpower.
Do you feel like you've always had that, or is it something that's developed?
Yes, I do. I feel like I've always had it. Not like brilliantly, but I feel like it was in me to be refined and brought out. But you don't know, I was that person at school that was like, attention seeker, chatterbox, always trying to think this. Teachers hated me, that kind of person. Did really well with private tutors, but not in school, because if I was with more than 10 people, I wanted to be the loudest person in the room. But, I had a huge circle of friends, and despite the teachers hating that I was distracted, I had great relationships.
They don't like that. Why don't they like it?
I don't know.
They just want to get on and teach their lesson, don't they?
Yeah, it's distracting.
They just want to be like, I want to read out what I have on my paper and not deal with personalities.
Yes. No, exactly. That's how it is. Anyone that doesn't sort of tick those boxes
into a mould.
Yeah, I think isn't great for
it looks like they might be quite clever.
Yeah. But funnily enough, my sister and mother-in-law are both teachers now, and I think, you really wouldn't have liked me. But no, I definitely had kind of a way with connecting with people in general. Just had a big circle. Yeah, despite my behaviour, they actually liked me. They always had a positive thing about my personality, just not my, maths skills. And
does this matter really? Do our math skills matter? Do you use them?
Oh, absolutely not.
No, neither do I.
But as I kind of started following down the marketing route, communications route, I've realised that I'm full of empathy. I'm a real empath, so I feel everything that other people feel. And I've realised that I could use that to my advantage, which actually was sometimes a kind of a disadvantage, actually, when you're young and you're surrounded by a lot of very emotional teenagers or, young adults. That's quite difficult. But as I got older, I realised that if I could just figure out the ways to connect with a large variety of people on a deeper level, I would be able to talk to them about things a lot better, market to them a lot better for brands, because it was at a kind of transition period where people weren't buying into businesses anymore. They were buying into people, but the big brands were failing to connect with, customers and their ideal clients on that personal level, because they were so used to those traditional big corporate brand ads and that sort of thing, which just weren't resonating anymore. People were getting savvier and it was a lot harder to cut through the noise. And that's where I really stepped in, and I think just had this way of diving into people, figuring out their problems and working out the ways that I could connect with them in that kind of deeper perspective, and just use that to leverage, obviously, the marketing side. But yeah, I would say that's my superpower.
That would be why you're so good at keeping those relationships going. So,
one thing that I just wanted to ask quickly, and I do want to do it quickly because I want to get onto some other bits and pieces, is at what point did you realise and start using that?
I couldn't get my head around job descriptions online that said, we want a marketing person with property experience because we deal with developers or whatever. Because to me, I was like, I can just get to know any person and learn how to market them. I don't understand why I would have to be specifically in one sector and have lots of experience in that sector. It really bothered me that there was this thing going on in the world of recruitment that if you didn't have sector-specific experience or whatever, you couldn't get that position. So I really made it my mission to work for as many different industries as physically possible, to prove that actually if you're a really good marketer and you're really good with connecting with people, you should be able to apply those skills to connect with a hugely different amount of people and types of people. I've worked for sports brands, smoothie companies with kind of like health foodie kind of people as their target market, professional services, property, various different sectors. And the target markets for those sectors are all massively different. But ultimately, if your tool of skills is what it is, you should be able to apply the right ones to the right people. It's just figuring out what ones resonate. And I think I liked the challenge of trying to change the perceptions of the industry that, no, you don't need to have had 10 years in professional services to work for an accountancy firm and do good marketing there. You should, if you are a really good people person and good at marketing, you should be able to connect with as many people as possible.
In fact, it could be a disadvantage because you're going in there with this preconceived
plan
box of ideas of this is how their target market feels, this is the problem you're solving. Exactly. And it's all quite complacent, isn't it? Because you may be entirely wrong.
Exactly. They all need a completely bespoke strategy.
And they may be wrong as well. So they may assume... I've come across this quite often where people assume they're solving one problem and people are with them for a particular reason. And then when they actually sort of delve a bit deeper, it's entirely different. Yeah. It's not that at all.
No.
Yeah. And then things change, don't they? The way we do things, marketing has changed. Yeah. The way we do business has changed. Yes. The products we sell has changed. If you can't change and adapt, then...
Exactly.
Yeah, then you're stuffed, aren't you, really?
Pretty much.
So, what I'd like to do now is find out a little bit about how you got into what you're doing and the type of clients that you work with now.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So, I did a degree in marketing at Nottingham Trent, and it was like being on The Apprentice for 3 years. Live briefs.
Sounds vile.
It was, when I say like that, I mean genuinely exactly like that. So working with brands, they'd give you a live brief, exactly like The Apprentice. You would get in a small team, come up with a response to the brief, pitch it, and get absolutely ridiculed or praised. Either way, doesn't matter. And that was my 3 years. So it was all about learning as much as you could about the various tools, tactics. So both traditional marketing methods and digital marketing methods, although back then the digital methods were not what they are now. That was the basics of social media at that point. QR codes weren't even being adopted properly. So it was a different time. But following on from my degree, I actually got a grad job as a buyer for Topshop accessories. I did 2 weeks and I quit. And I turned up and I looked at all of the positions above me that would have been my kind of journey. And there was just not the creativity that I'd hoped for. And the company culture wasn't really what I was hoping for either. But I looked at their marketing departments and thought, I did a marketing degree, that's what I should be doing. I don't know why I've accepted it just because it was a grad job and it's not for me. So I left that job. Fast forward, I got a sole marketeer role at a company called Savse, which was a smoothie company. I was one of the first kind of marketing hires, but the turnover of the team was quite quick because it was a startup business. So at points, you're everything. You're the events coordinator, the graphic designer, the head of marketing. You're absolutely everything. And then at points, you've got your nice little role that you're a bit more set on. But that was amazing because I had a huge budget, startup, big round of investment, and really got my teeth into marketing when I was there. And then I guess fast forward, I got headhunted for my role at Raffingers, the Chartered Certified Accountants. So there were various jobs in between, of course. But when I joined Raffingers, they literally came to me and said, we want someone to challenge the stereotypes of the industry. You know, it's very male, stale, pale, and we want something that's different. I'd come from a previous role at a darts company, as in the sport darts. And I was the voice to Feel the Power Taylor on social media, who's 16 times World Darts Championship, World Darts Champion, as well as kind of working for the world's leading darts brand. So I was their marketing manager or head of marketing. So they brought me over from that, which is obviously wildly different, which is what you were saying, right, about surely it's not good to come from the same exact sector. So joined them, and then I spent my first month sitting in on client meetings, really listening to the problems that every single client, prospective client had, and spotted an opportunity in the market really to be helping them with marketing support, because most of their problems were about profit, revenue. And no matter what they were doing, they weren't able to pay themselves the right salaries, and they weren't feeling like the effort that they were putting in was coming out. So I prepared a business plan, pitched it to the 11 partners at Raffingers, and then secured investment from them to set up my own marketing agency as a subsidiary of the firm, and found that out when I was 6 weeks pregnant and obviously hadn't told anyone. Had to go ahead pretending for the next 6 weeks I was going to launch it only 6 months later because I wasn't ready to tell them that I was pregnant yet, panicking that they were going to fire me as soon as they found out that I was pregnant and not able to start a business in the next 6 months. And thank God, as expected and as I should have expected, when I told them, they were like, you go, do what you need to do, come back, the business will be ready for you to set up. And that is how I got to this point. The type of clients I'm working with now are full range really. We work with property clients, we have, facilities maintenance type of clients, but also, we've got like a shredding company that we work with, and so it's very mixed. We currently focus more on the client portfolio that the accountancy practice have, because I've got like over 2,000
field, isn't
exactly,
it?
2,000 warm leads to tap into, and they specialise in the property and construction sectors and recruitment. So it tends to be those are the sectors that I'm working with at the moment. But slowly we're starting to pick up more e-commerce businesses and sort of, I guess, the sexier types of businesses that we've started to pick up, which is lovely. But we're getting to a point where we're at full capacity, so we'll be probably bringing on more people on the team and just slowly growing the agency side, as well as still looking after the marketing for the accountancy firm. So it's a busy time.
So, wide range of clients, loads and loads of experience. Okay, it's time to pick her brains, isn't it? So,
Gosh.
I know. So, well, we've got some really interesting questions here for you, I think. Mainly because we asked you, what are the questions that people should ask you but actually don't. So let's start off with, what is more important, building your personal brand or your business brand?
That is a tough one. So not even that long ago, building your business brand was the absolute priority. Brand awareness was always a goal, of one of 3 goals: generate leads, build brand awareness.
And what does that? Brand awareness. I mean, it's something that we hear a lot of, isn't it? It's like, oh yes, let's build brand awareness. What is it?
I think some would probably say the brand awareness is if you don't see a return of investment, but it generated some brand awareness. No, but that's not. That's not true. Brand awareness is very much all about, you've got a great product, but how do you make it fly? People have to know who you are. They have to recognise your brand tone of voice. You have to be seen. You have to show up where they are. There is literally no other way. If
so
you've got
how do you
or
measure?
product,
So if you're working with a client, you say, okay, well, we're going to be working on your brand awareness. How do you then measure it? Because it's such a nebulous thing, isn't it?
So measuring obviously depends completely on the tactic, but I think it's brand awareness is obviously slightly intangible, of course, but the growth of, I guess, your social platforms and your following in general can signify a bit of a kind of increased brand awareness. Web traffic in general, but more organic web traffic, that would kind of show me that you've got that brand awareness, all of the organic growth. So that's what I would say would be like kind of a measure of it, but depending on the tactic, obviously, if the strategy is all around brand awareness, there could be many tactics deployed to hit that strategy. So say TV advertising was one of them. You'd think that would be very hard to attribute to the outcome, because how do you kind of work out what that's... But actually, even with something like TV advertising, you see a spike around the window of each ad that comes on, and you can measure, okay, what was our web traffic within that 10-minute window before and after. And you can attribute a lot more to things that you're doing from a brand awareness perspective. It's just, it's not tangible. You don't see it on your kind of bottom line. It's beyond the balance sheet, essentially. You know, it goes that bit further. But, you know, generally speaking, brand is building your brand is still absolutely important. But as I said earlier, people buy people, and they want to know your story. They want to know your personality. There is no use, especially, I mean, for product-based businesses, story is important and personal branding is important, but it is not as essential as it is for service-based businesses. For service businesses, personal branding is bigger than it ever has been, and social media algorithms are now giving better treatment to personal channels than they are brand channels.
So in the context of, say, a service business, service-based business, where it's not just one person.
Yes.
Where there are a number of people. It could be that they're directors, it could be their partners, it could be co-founders, or it could be staff, managers, whatever. Is there anywhere where you would focus that personal brand?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with companies who... You know, a perfect example is Raffingers. We've got 11 partners, PAs, managers, various different... And we're working on all of their personal brands. So we create we call them curated content hubs, where we'll produce a load of content, which they can tap into, adapt their kind of templates, and use to build their own kind of profiles.
That's really clever.
Yeah, and it works, and it helps.
I don't mean that to sound patronising. I just think that's really clever, because I think so often people, they'd love to be able to write an article, but they just haven't got the time, or they haven't got the initial idea. So you provide them with the background research, the details, the facts, which they can then add their personality to.
That's it.
Okay, I might steal that. Hang on.
That's it.
Excuse me a moment.
That's why you're on the show.
Sorry, why did you think you were here? Let me just write that down. Next hot tip.
It really is really powerful for companies, as you said, with multiple people who they want to encourage to build their personal brands. And the one thing I'd say to employers is, with personal branding, don't ever think that it's an ego-driven thing. I think a lot of business owners believe that personal branding, if someone on their team says, I really want to build my personal brand, that they're using it to kind of build themselves up and get recruited to somewhere else. It's such a benefit to the business. It comes straight
But
around
even if they
business.
get recruited to somewhere else,
You should be
people will
proud.
still
You know,
remember.
people move.
Oh, they started at Raffingers.
Yeah.
You know, people. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, there's a girl on my team who is famous on LinkedIn. I love that. She's bringing in new business. She's, you know, the business we get outside of the portfolio is coming from her community that she's built. And I don't have as much time as I'd like to do my own. So she's now helping me with mine, because where I used to be able to sit and spend that time. But what these curated content hubs really do is they help your team get the confidence to quickly take a template, turn it into something their own, add their own thoughts, opinions, and post it out. And that kind of imposter syndrome of nobody cares is taken away because you're giving them something that is designed for that.
I suppose it also gives them a bit of a anchor is the wrong word, but sort of a not a tie. I can't. The worms are not with me today. A link back to the business brand.
Yes.
So that there is still that sort of connection.
Exactly.
So they're still writing about something that's relevant. Because I think if we're not careful, we do tend to go off at like a complete tangent. So there's still that connection, but it's got their personal stamp on it.
Yep.
And they haven't had to go and fact check everything.
And that's the thing, personal branding, there is a line. People don't just want to hear about you. You have to, it's an exchange.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that you've always still got your target market in mind, whether you're a freelancer, you work for a large company, you're the director. It's thinking about the exchange. What am I writing, whether it's a blog, like a long form piece of content, a help sheet, or a social media post? What's the exchange here? What is it that I'm saying that is going to help somebody who I'm targeting? And it doesn't need to be a service push. You know, I might talk about balancing starting a business and starting a family. But I don't just want to moan about it. That's not going to resonate with someone. So what's my tip here? You know, what's something I can share with other females that follow me, or new mums that follow me, or new parents in general that read what I'm talking about, that they can actually take from that and go, oh, you know what? She's given me a good bit of advice today on a way that you can balance both.
And it's made you a real person as well, hasn't it?
And that's the key.
Yeah.
Relatable.
Bringing yourself into it is huge, and it helps your business, especially, as I said, in the service industry, because eventually they're going to pick up the phone, they're going to sit down in front of you, and if the way that you read on paper is not how you read in real life, there's a disconnect. It's like a catfish.
Or catfishing them.
It is. It absolutely is the same. I want to work with somebody who in real life is the same as I was sold online. And if the tone of voice across everything, your brand website plus your personal pages, and then in real life, are all three separate entire things, it's confusing, right?
Yeah.
I'd be like, who am I working with here? Are you someone we can go and have a drink at the pub with? Or are you someone that likes, you know, to sit round the board table? And that's fine. But different people want different things, and that's also fine.
And you have to know what conversation you're having with them and what tone you're using. Are you sat in a coffee shop, or are you around the board table?
Exactly.
It's a very, very different conversation, isn't it?
Exactly.
So I've got a question for you, which is, as a small business with little to no budget, and that's lots of businesses, most businesses, you know. So what can I do?
I would say with no budget or little to no budget, your organic content, social media stuff is absolutely key.
Can we just explain organic? Yes. So that's where you are not paying for adverts. Basically, you're not paying for things like Google ads, you're not paying for Facebook ads or anything like that. You are using your content and what you're putting out there. And that could be your website, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
It could be anywhere, but you're not paying for advertising.
Exactly. I mean, I've seen and worked with many businesses without marketing budgets.
Yeah.
And the entire strategy is an organic strategy, an organic inbound strategy. So that is using your website, which even on a budget or a very low budget, you've got platforms like Squarespace, you know, that for £17 a month, it's pre-templated. It's really easy to either pay somebody a smaller fee to build for you if you don't feel like you've got that creativity in you. But if you have that slight eye, very easy to build yourself. And then really working on your organic socials. I mean, brands, especially the personal side again, your personal LinkedIn, to talk about your business journey, to talk about your products and what makes them different, share testimonials, share case studies. There's so many things that you could do. You know, your Google reviews, spend time sending out that Google review link to your clients and building up those Google reviews, because you might not be paying for Google ads, but if Google sees that you've got Google reviews, they still give you more they still push you further in terms of SEO. So there's so much you can do, creating content, spending time writing articles and updating your website, all of that sort of stuff that pushes you up in Google's rankings. And
that all sounds really great, but if I was just starting out, and I've been there, you just think there's 100 different platforms. Well, it feels like 100.
Yes.
Where would you tell somebody to start?
So that's where strategy really comes into play. You have to do that research, that little initial kind of business strategy, marketing strategy, to really understand where are your target market. If you target retired business owners, so business owners that are no longer working, you're a pension provider, say, for example, well, they're not going to be on TikTok. So you could spend a lot of hours creating cool TikTok videos about your product, and they're not. The strategy is absolutely key. So you need to start off by looking at your business, looking at your target market, the market in general, the standard old school SWOT analysis stuff, you know, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Doing all of that research, looking at your competitors, what are they doing? Once you've done all of that research, you can get a much clearer picture of, okay, this is who I'm competing with, this is what they do well, this is what they don't. This is who I'm targeting. These are their customer personas. So this is where they spend their time. These are their hobbies. These are what social platforms.
And the thing is, they may not be online at all.
They might not.
They might be down the Women's Institute. So you may need to put your big girl pants on and get out from behind the computer and go and talk to people and make appointments to chat to them.
Exactly. Or post it. You know, some people are going back to mail.
You know what?
Mail, aren't they?
Wouldn't advise.
I think that's quite expensive.
Yeah, for a no budget, wouldn't advise. You don't see as much return of investment as you'd hope for. And to be honest, it's still being binned. You've also got, obviously, depending on your target market, the kind of millennials and the Gen Zs of the world, they're not happy when they see paper. So they don't really want that. They would much rather a face-to-face networking thing or the online world. But, I mean, people, you know, we're out of the pandemic, guys. Get out there. Go and meet people again. It feels out of all of our comfort zones, but it's powerful. You know, there is no better way to talk about your product, your business, your service, what you love, than in front of someone face to face and having that real life conversation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Thank you so much. We haven't finished with you yet. Sorry, I just lulled you into a full sense of security there. Thinking about your topic of marketing, branding, strategy, everything, what's your top tip for that?
Always have a strategy. Genuinely, my top tip is strategy first. I mean, we've made our agency all about strategy first marketing. And the reason why was that so many times I have seen people spending so much money on things that aren't going to generate any return of investment. They don't do enough of the groundwork. They don't analyse the market. It's just not being done. They just think you need to be everywhere because you need to tick those boxes. They're like, we have to be on Facebook, Twitter, and
because everybody else is.
Instagram, because everyone else is. And it's not true. It's not true. And if you're doing everything but only have the time to do it poorly at best or average, it's not going to do anything anyway. So you're better off to refine your strategy, focus on one or two things and do them really brilliantly and own that space than spread your skin and do everything everywhere. So I would absolutely say strategy first is like my biggest tip. There are templates out there. We have a template. There are, we produce strategies for businesses. So there is so many ways to get a great one. And with that, you take it, you either kind of implement it via your team, or you try and do it yourself, or you work with someone like an agency or a freelancer or whoever. But without a doubt, without a strategy, I hear so often about agencies and freelancers who specialise in, say, social media, and you would come to them with your business and you'd say, I want to generate more leads, And because they specialise in social media, they go, yes, social media, or yes, you need better SEO.
Yeah, you've got a hammer, so you go around looking for a nail to hit.
And actually, what we do is when we produce a strategy, it might be that every outcome from that strategy that comes from the research, we don't offer as an agency. I don't not put it in. I wouldn't say that we specialise. We don't specialise in Google advertising. That's not our area. We have people that can do it, but we don't specialise in it. I'm not going to leave it off if I think that is the absolute best thing for a client. I'm not a web developer, but if I feel like one of my clients needs a new website before they start spending money on advertising, because otherwise they're driving traffic to a terrible, bad user experience space, and you'll know that better than I do.
Yeah.
I will suggest, your strategy is new website. Then once you've got your website, you'll need this, and this. But strategy, biggest tip, do it.
And that's key, actually. I mean, that's something we see a lot. We're not designers. We work on speed and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Is where people are posting stuff out from their website. They've done a blog, they've done a post, they've done an article, they've got a landing page, and they're posting it out, and it doesn't open quick enough. It's as simple as that. And the poor agency gets blamed.
Yeah.
Your strategy isn't working. Well, no, it's the website isn't working.
Exactly.
So, you have to look at the thing as a whole. So thank you so much for that. Start with strategy. So what is your top tip just for being in business generally?
I guess what I said earlier about surround yourself, if you can, with people more talented than you.
You've got to have guts to do that, haven't you?
Yeah. You can't have an ego.
Sometimes it's a big stretch, isn't it? Because you have to let that go, and you have to let people be better than you. Definitely.
And I think everywhere I've worked, I've found that at the point that I am brought in, it's because they know we've tried things, it hasn't worked, we need to bring in an expert. So I've actually worked with, prior to being the directors and, people in leadership positions who really appreciate the fact that we've hired you because you're the expert in what you do. Do it. We don't want to drive you in a certain direction. We want you to take lead. If at the point where, it's 6 months down the line and what you're doing isn't working, okay, we'll sit down with you. We'll have a look at what we could have done differently. And then you might want to take a bit more of kind of that driver's seat position. But I always say to my team, I am bringing you in because you're the best at what you do. If 6 months down the line you feel like you need a bit of support or a bit more direction because something hasn't worked, we'll come up with a different plan. But I will let you put everything you've got into what you're doing, whether it's a mistake or not. If I don't let you give that a go when you truly believe in it and you've done the research and you've got the experience, not me, then I don't feel like I'm doing the best job I can as a manager. So yeah, surrounding yourself. And if a team isn't possible, I would say as a business owner, get exposure, network with marketeers, talk to people, listen to radio shows like this and learn. There are so many platforms out there, books out there. Like we said, I read the Traction book. That's how I know about the methodology that we now implement into our book. I think it's by Gino.
Just writing that down.
Yeah, Traction, Gino Wickman, I think it's by.
So this is what we do. We get you in here. It's just for us.
Just to glean information.
Yeah, we tell you it's going out live on it. It's not. We're just pumping you through.
It's the best methodology for making sure your business operates the way that you need it to. And then there's, Start With Why. Simon Sinek. Yeah, I think it's another great book which made me realise what my personal why was. And that always makes sure that with my business, if I ever feel like something isn't authentic to me and my values, I don't want to do it. It keeps me happy. It means that I feel like I'm always making an impact with what we're doing and not just doing things for the sake of business's sake.
It's not just transactional.
Yeah, so I think either bring in the experts, as you said, delegate, surround yourself by people that can do the things that you can't, or upskill, learn, and spend that time being a sponge. You're never too good to learn more, and people might think they are, but you're never, ever, ever too good to learn more.
Last question. What do you know now that you wish you'd have known when you started out?
Listen and only speak if I have something valuable to say. That would be mine.
Interesting. Thank you. So, I think we want to find out how
people can
how we can contact you. So, how can people get in touch with you, Ashlee?
Sure. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I actually think I'm still Ashlee Bloom on LinkedIn and
It's
not
spelled
Ashlee Cooper.
ASHLEE. Yeah.
So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. But you can head over to either raffingers.co.uk or raffingersmarketing.co.uk. And if you go on the contact form, I am normally the person who reads the contact form. So that's me, and that's how you can connect with me. And Raffingers is RAFFINGERS.
That's it.
Dyslexic here,
It will all be on the...
It will all be on the post as they go out. So Ashlee Cooper, Director of Raffingers Marketing and a partner at Raffingers, Chartered Certified Accountants, thank you so much for sharing so much and being such a fantastic guest. And to my co-host today, Jemma Fairclough Haynes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we will be back in the studio with you all next week. So thank you so much for listening, folks, and we will catch up with you again soon. Bye.
Tune in next week to the Women in Business radio show for more stories, ideas and inspiration to help you grow your business.
Channel 2 Talk Radio.